Welcome back. Impeachment Showdown. House Republicans earlier this week, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, voted to launch an official impeachment inquiry into President Biden for his son Hunter's and other Biden family members' alleged business dealings with foreign companies and foreign entities. While Republicans have failed to find any connection between President Biden and these business dealings whatsoever, Republicans are hoping to use the impeachment inquiry to find at least some sort of smoking gun to connect Biden to alleged corruption in time for the election year. The move, supported unanimously by Republicans, is being lauded as the next chance of accountability in D.C., while Democrats have been working to shut it down. Does this impeachment really matter? Is it going to lead anywhere? Are Republicans hurting themselves as they enter into the election year? We'll be taking a look at all of those questions as we explore this. We'll be taking a look at those stories and more today, December 15th, 2023. From Ishan Media, this is the Ishan S. Show, a podcast about the interesting and ever-changing world of American politics. With me, your host, Ishan. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us here today. So, impeachment is inherently a very political process. I think as we've seen over the past few years, I think within the last 30 or so years, impeachment has actually become a far more legitimate tool that politicians have used in D.C. in order to, ravel up a lot of people. And we're seeing impeachment get used a lot more in states across the country. In Texas, the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, was impeached, and he was accused of a lot of different charges, but in the end, the Texas legislature voted to acquit. But in South Dakota, the Attorney General there was impeached and removed for his alleged, not alleged because he was in court, but for a hit and run, Then we saw impeachment, if we look here in Illinois, too. There was, not too long ago during Obama's term for president. Governor Rod Blagojevich, governor here, was impeached and removed for corruption. So it's not a foreign concept to us anymore, and especially in the last 10 years where we've seen two impeachments of the same president, admittedly, but two impeachments already, it's interesting to see that impeachment get used as a tool. So for my friends who've not taken a civics class yet or don't understand what impeachment is, I'll tell you right now, a common misconception is that impeachment is removing a president. That's not true. It's part of the process, but it's not actually there yet. So impeachment means that you are officially accusing a federal or state official of doing something that goes against the constitutional outlines of the office. So in our U.S. Constitution, there are very, very minimal charges, and it's incredibly vague. If I had to pull up the charges, there are high crimes and misdemeanors, things of that nature. And it's not defined. So if you are a president breaking the law, so if you were to, say, commit murder, not that I say a president can or should have ever, but if you did that, the result would be probably that you'd get impeached and removed for a high crime and misdemeanor. Like, they don't have an actual code. And if you break the law, the Justice Department has long-standing precedent not to indict you. Obviously, you will get charged for doing it, and they will try to take you to court. It's just when you're president, you have a few privileges. So Congress might actually vote to remove you from office so that you can face that justice. But that's the thing. It's such a vague thing that we've seen people use it in all sorts of ways. In our nation's history, there have been 4 impeachments. Andrew Johnson in 1868 after the Civil War. Bill Clinton in 1998, right before the turn of the millennium, and then Donald Trump twice in 2019 and 2019 through 2020, and then 2021. All of these impeachments, you could argue, were relatively political, with the exception of the latest one. In 1868. The House Republicans were not very happy with President Johnson for a lot of the things he was doing. He was acting very much against the party's will, and So they decided to launch an impeachment inquiry into him for firing somebody from his cabinet without getting approval from Congress, which was law at the time. It was a law very conveniently passed to make him break. Then Bill Clinton, obviously, many of us know because of pop culture, because of what we all know with Monica Lewinsky, and for hiding that affair and lying allegedly in a deposition. Then with Donald Trump, the first impeachment with him was for allegedly withholding hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine in exchange for dirt on President Biden when he was running against him. That resulted. So in all of these cases, the president was acquitted of the charges and made it to the Senate, and they were acquitted. Andrew Johnson actually had the closest. He was saved by literally one vote. Then, but this resulted in, so with Trump's impeachment, actually Mitt Romney voted against Donald Trump, which was like, oh, so crazy at the time. So they had one additional vote to try to convict and remove. But obviously, Democrats were not in the majority at the time, so nothing happened. Then with Donald Trump's second impeachment, impeachment number 2, it was after the January 6th riots, and that happened actually pretty quickly. Impeachment inquiry was launched and then just done within 2 weeks, and it was sent to the Senate. President Trump was impeached for the second time for high crimes and misdemeanors again for alleged well, I say alleged because, again, alleged is the word you have to use with impeachment because, again, it's not a court. It's not, nothing's proven. But it's still something where you have where you were trying to prove that President Trump was trying to commit insurrection. And that went to the Senate, and that resulted in another acquittal. But that one was actually one of the most bipartisan impeachment conviction attempts in history. We had 7 Republicans vote with 51 Democrats to try to remove him. So he was actually 10 votes shy of getting convicted. But anyway, the way it works is in the House, you are impeached, which means you are accused of a crime. And then that will then go to the Senate. And the Senate is your jury, and they try your crime. So they sit on the jury and decide whether or not you are guilty or innocent. So in all 4 of the situations I've outlined, it has always been that the Senate has voted to acquit the president. It's never happened that a president has been removed. Richard Nixon was actually pretty close to having that happen to him. It was in that distant of a possibility, but of course he resigned before they even launched an impeachment inquiry. So what is that step that I keep talking about? Impeachment inquiry. So impeachment inquiry means that you are officially launching an attempt to inquire or find more information about and do some more investigating and do some more research about alleged crimes that the president is committing. That is relevant for today's episode. I know I just went on a 6-minute spiel about this, but that is why it's relevant to today's episode, because today's episode is talking about how President Biden had an impeachment inquiry launched against him today, or, well, this week, actually. So House Republicans, when they came into power, a big priority for them was to investigate the heck out of Joe Biden, and their new speaker, Mike Johnson, who came into power in October after Kevin McCarthy was kicked out, his goal, one of his big goals, was to launch an impeachment inquiry. And mind you, that before Kevin McCarthy was ejected from the speakership, he was actually relatively close to getting this to happen. Now Mike Johnson was able to get it done. So sucks, Kevin. So what has President Biden been accused of? So in a nutshell, House Republicans, and they've been saying this for a very long time, they've been trying to use Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, as a sort of scapegoat to try to pin some sort of guilt or some sort of crime. Because, mind you, Hunter Biden has a pretty shady record of a lot of things, and he's not that friendly with the law. Not too long ago, I think maybe last week, he was indicted on gun charges. So, Hunter Biden has a bit of a reputation. But what Republicans are trying to do now is they're trying to tie alleged corruption with Hunter Biden, and then they're trying to tie Hunter Biden with President Biden. Now, so what they're saying was when Biden was vice president under President Obama, they said that while he was president, Hunter Biden, was trying to conduct alleged business dealings with Ukraine and China. and these business dealings were somehow benefiting Joe Biden. In terms of evidence, as I said in the opening, Republicans have not been able to find any conclusive evidence of Hunter Biden benefiting in business dealings because of his dad being vice president under President Obama. In fact, they've found no conclusive evidence and that President Biden has committed any high crimes or misdemeanors. Some GOP people people in the House have even admitted that there has been no proven evidence of anything happening so far. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah, I was watching this interview of his on Meet the Press. He said that there is literally nothing that's been proven so far of any sort of wrongdoing, and that this is just a sham. But what Republicans are trying to reason with is that because Hunter Biden has such a shady record, that Republicans want to launch an impeachment inquiry to now investigate because they feel that the evidence that they've been able to gather, which is not a lot for the record, that somehow warrants an interest in looking into Joe Biden. That is what this thing is in a nutshell. I want to talk about the politics of this impeachment. Impeachment inquiry, not impeachment yet. I almost have this really strong feeling that Republicans are going to try to definitely accelerate this impeachment inquiry without very much evidence and try to take it into the election year. I mean, obviously, why would they? Why wouldn't they? Because they have the House majority and we are so polarized, and Congress is like effectively just such a political tool now that it makes sense for them to want to try to throw some sort of dirt on Biden. They've been talking about doing this for years. I mean, even when Donald Trump was impeached first time. So let's see, if we look at impeachment processes, 2 impeachments ago now, Donald Trump was accused of trying to find this dirt on this information about Hunter Biden's alleged business dealings in Ukraine 4 years ago, more than 4 years ago now. This has been a thing that's been going on for a really long time, and now Republicans have the power, they have the ability to now launch an inquiry into President Biden, and now they're trying to put the label of impeachment on it so that they can further damage him. I'm going to say this. The first time Democrats impeached Donald Trump, it was not necessarily the most genius political idea in my view. Nancy Pelosi was especially hesitant of impeaching Donald Trump, but something in her, I don't know what, got her convinced to then impeach Donald Trump in 2019. And had COVID not happened and had the hell of 2020 not happened, I have a really good feeling that impeachment would have been weaponized against the Democrats like crazy, and it would have cost them a majority, and it could have even led Trump to win a second term. So if that happened then, and that was a pretty political impeachment with actually some impressive evidence that they were able to get, Democrats were able to gather some pretty impressive evidence. Like they had transcripts, they had testimony, they had all this sort of information that they were able to use. Even then, it was a pretty political impeachment because they still did not have that much of conclusive evidence. Right now, what Republicans are doing, House Republicans, they have no evidence. They are driving this car into the castle without their headlights on, without a tough car, and the drawbridge is already pulled up. If you can't go in with evidence of, here's another thing. In federal court, you have to be indicted before they take you to court, right? They have to indict you. They have to prove that they have enough evidence to then first take you to trial, because you have to get charged with the crime, then you go to trial. Here, you can't even say that you have enough evidence to take this to court, right? I mean, if the court was the Congress, the impeachment inquiry is meant to gather that evidence because they feel that they have more evidence to charge him. But they don't even have enough evidence to show that they need an impeachment inquiry. And that's conclusive across the board. I mean, you have Republicans on Fox News, you have Republicans everywhere. Even Mitt Romney is saying this. And that's the thing with impeachment. It's an inherently political process. It's not legal. It's not a legal process that goes through. It's a political process. Obviously, the framers designed impeachment as a way to secure the republic in the event that we had a chief executive who did say go off the rails or was doing something terrible. But the way our politics has turned in the last few years, it's become this weapon of politicians to desecrate the other side. So if you are a Republican majority in Congress with a Democrat president, or if you're a Democrat majority with a Republican president, impeachment is one of your options on your list that you are ready to go. And all it shows is in partisan it's effectively partisan governing that doesn't produce productive results. And the same way I thought that would have hurt Democrats scored it lucky with the fact that people forgot that there was an impeachment about a week after it happened. Republicans, I don't know or if they're going to benefit from it, because um, the timeline between impeachment and election is a lot smaller of a window. Democrats launched an impeachment inquiry into Trump around, I think the source said September 24th, and Republicans did the same thing with Bill Clinton on September 24th. Funnily enough, both of those impeachment inquiries actually ended on December 19th or 18th or something like that. It was a 3-month long process. So, my theory, looking at what's going on, my theory is this. I think Republicans are really trying to time this out to match it with Trump's trials. Because Trump, again, don't forget, Donald Trump is running for president. Donald Trump exists, and he's been indicted and charged with a lot of different crimes, and he's going to be in courtrooms all of next year. It's your decision to make whether or not you think it's biased or if you think that it's on purpose. I don't know. I'm not going to say that, but fact is that he's going to be in courtrooms. And I think Republicans want to really time this out to get Joe Biden's impeachment stuff to go on during Trump's trials. And I think that is where they're going to try to make this comparison. They're going to be like, oh, look, Donald Trump is being politically persecuted. We're coming back with retribution. That's a trailer into what a Trump presidency is going to look like. If you ask me, that's what my theory is. And they'd want to try to embarrass Joe Biden. But in reality, impeachment almost always backfires. It just backfires. After Republicans impeached Clinton, like crazy, they won in the midterms. Democrats won in the midterms. And the same thing would have happened in 2020. Democrats would have won in the midterms. Or, excuse me, Republicans would have won in the midterms had things not changed. Now, I'm really hoping that nothing terrible happens over the next year. So we're just going to pretend that nothing's going to happen over the next year until Election Day. And if we go with that assumption and Republicans follow through, and I have this really strong feeling they're going to not convict Joe Biden, they're going to use this against them. It's a really faulty political step. I mean, you have so many Republicans right now going on national media saying that this is such a mistake, right? And you see the decisions that a Congress or House will make based on their leadership. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been pushing for an impeachment since her first day in office. She started 17 days before Joe Biden was calling for an impeachment. Like, that is what this Republican majority is. And Mike Johnson, incredibly partisan. He has been in the job for less than 2 months, and there have been so many things that he's already done that show that he's partisan. It's just a smear job that they're trying to do. And Democrats did the same thing when Trump was president. And Republicans did the same thing when Clinton was president. Republicans dreamt of doing it when Obama was president. Democrats dreamt of doing it when Bush was president. Back then, it was a little more difficult because we were a lot more unified and we had a lot more center voices that would like call people out on this sort of BS. Now, we're more isolated, we're more polarized, we're more partisan, and impeachment just is another tool in the playbook. And if I look at it this way, I'm not going to be surprised if for the next few well, I don't even know how long, for the next few presidents even, we see at least one or two impeachment attempts. That's what I'm feeling like is going to happen, because that's what this process has become. Obviously, I'm not going to just discount Republicans for all that they're doing. I mean, obviously, someone in that majority has been convinced that there's some wrongdoing and that they feel that it must be done, and we're going to honor what they feel. And maybe just maybe, they might be able to pull up some really damning evidence. I don't really think that's the case because they've been investigating for a year, and the evidence that they've been able to show after a year is just, diddly squat and nothing much. But, maybe Republicans will surprise us. I don't know. I wouldn't put my money on it, to be honest. But we're going to keep watching this because it's interesting stuff that's going on. I just wouldn't be so confident as to just make the conclusion that Joe Biden is guilty, that he needs to go, that Kamala Harris needs to prep to become president now because Joe Biden's obviously going to have to resign. No, none of that's going to happen. If anything, this is going to be something that Democrats are going to benefit a lot if. They're going to earn a lot of political capital because of this. That's what I'm thinking. We'll keep an eye on stuff. But yeah, that's a look at impeachment and what this is going to do, what it's going to look like, the ramifications of it, and we'll see how things turn out. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. We'll see you next week.
And so that does it for us here today at the Sean S. Show. If you liked my commentary, then go ahead and follow the Sean S. Show on Twitter and Instagram for breaking news posts and updates about the show. And if you want to learn more about political stories, then check out my political news blog on the SeanSShow.com and go ahead and subscribe to it. Do us a favor and share this episode and all your other favorite episodes with your friends and family. It's the best way for this show to grow and get more people listening to it. Thanks again for all your support, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.